Hello everyone. In this video, we shall see the definition of the Riemann-Stieltjes integral. Definition of the Riemann-Stieltjes integral. Right? So first of all, we shall recall the Riemann integral as the Riemann integral and the Riemann-Stieltjes integral are almost similar. So there is only one difference. I will explain it afterwards. So first we shall recall the Riemann integral. So what is Riemann integral? So given a bounded real valued function f defined on some closed interval a comma b, we consider a partition, that is a set of finite numbers from a to b in the natural increasing order. So this is the main point of the Riemann integral. We consider a partition which is nothing but finite set of points from a to b considered in the increasing natural increasing order of real numbers. So further, this partition divides the closed interval a comma b. So if this is the closed interval a comma b, so a is nothing but x naught, x1, x2, so on xn minus 1, and b is nothing but xn. So using these finitely many points, I can divide the closed interval a comma b into some subintervals. So they are n in number from x0 to x1, x1 to x2, so on xn minus 1 to xn. So this partition divides the closed interval a comma b into n subintervals, where for any I, the length of the ith subinterval will be of the form xi minus 1, xi, and its length is denoted by delta xi, and length of the closed interval is nothing but the upper limit minus lower limit. So as we have considered these numbers xi's in the increasing order, so xi minus 1 will be obviously greater than or equal to 0. So this is the main point of the Riemann integral. So using the natural increasing order of real numbers, we consider the length of each closed interval, each subinterval as delta xi, which is non-negative, right? So next, as we have considered a bounded function on closed interval a comma b, so f is a bounded function means, so there is a bound for the images, there is a bound for the images. So that is, there exists reals m and capital M such that m is less than or equal to f of x less than or equal to capital M. So which holds for all the points in the closed interval a comma b. Now closed interval a comma b is divided into subintervals. So on each subinterval I can have the same. So as this is true for all points from a to b, it will be true for any subinterval. So what that means, so the set of all numbers f of x is bounded below and bounded above on each subinterval. So it is a set of real numbers which are bounded below. So by the greatest lower bound property, the infimum exists, and as these numbers are bounded above, so by the least upper bound property of R, supremum exists. So call mi as the infimum and capital M as the supremum for each I. So next, so if we observe that m is less than or equal to mi less than or equal to capital Mi less than or equal to m. This is because, so mi is the infimum of these numbers f of x as x varies over this closed interval, and m is one of the lower bound. So mi is the greatest lower bound and m is the lower bound. So what is the relation? Greatest lower bound will be always greater than or equal to lower bound. Now, mi is supremum of these numbers, that is least upper bound, and m is an upper bound. So, any upper bound will be greater than or equal to the least upper bound. So, we will get this inequality using the concept of greatest lower bound and least upper bound. So, next we define two terms. So, the lower Riemann sum, the upper Riemann sum. So, this is called the lower Riemann sum, and this is nothing but the upper Riemann sum. So lower Riemann sum is defined to be summation mi delta xi, I running from 1 to n. Upper Riemann sum is defined to be summation capital Mi delta xi, I running from 1 to n. And using this inequality, multiplying delta xi, as delta xi is non-negative, multiply this inequality by delta xi. So as it is non-negative, the inequality remains the same, and take summation on each term. Finally, you will get this relation. So as I have already explained it in the definition of Riemann integral, you can refer the previous videos. So on multiplying delta xi to this inequality and taking the sum of all terms as I varies from 1 to n, you will get the relation double star. So this relation shows that for any partition P, LPF and UPF are bounded below by m into b minus a and bounded above by m into b minus a. So these are real numbers bounded below and above. So their infimum and supremum exists obviously. So we'll define two notions here. So this integral is called the lower Riemann integral of f over the closed interval a comma b, and it is defined to be supremum of all lower Riemann sums. And this integral is called the upper Riemann integral of f over the closed interval a comma b, and it is defined as the infimum of all upper Riemann sums. So observe here. So for any partition P, LPF is always less than or equal to m into b minus a. What that means, if we collect all lower Riemann sums as P varies over all partitions, it is bounded above by m into b minus a. So it forms a non-empty set of real numbers bounded above. So their supremum exists, and that supremum is taken as the lower Riemann integral. And now, once again, if I refer the double star, you are observe that for any partition P, the upper Riemann sum is always bounded below by small m into b minus a. That means if we collect all upper Riemann sums for various partitions P of a comma b, so that set is bounded below by m into b minus a. So if you collect all the upper Riemann sums, it forms a non-empty set of real numbers bounded below. So hence its infimum exists, and that infimum is taken as the upper Riemann integral of f over the closed interval a comma b. If the lower Riemann integral is equal to the upper Riemann integral, then in this case we will say f is Riemann integrable on closed interval a comma b, and we write f belongs to R, where R is taken as the set of all Riemann integrable functions. And whenever the lower Riemann integral is equal to the upper Riemann integral, the common value is taken as integral of f from a to b, which is called the Riemann integral of f over the closed interval a comma b. So whenever the lower Riemann integral and the upper Riemann integral are equal, the common value is called the Riemann integral of f over the closed interval a comma b. So this is the Riemann integral of a function. So where the main point is this one. So we consider a partition which involves finitely many points in the natural increasing order of the real numbers. So using that natural increasing order, we define delta xi. We define delta xi to be xi minus 1. So which is xi minus 1, which will be non-negative. So this is the main point in the Riemann integral, where we use the increasing order of real numbers. What is the natural increasing order on real numbers? So that natural increasing order is used here to define the Riemann integral. So if at all, in place of the natural increasing order of real numbers, if we consider any other increasing function. So what is the natural increasing order of real numbers? It goes like this, 1, 2, 3, like this. So this is the natural increasing order of numbers. So in between 1 and 2, there are plenty of real numbers. So which will move from lesser to larger. So which we will call as a natural increasing order. So in place of this natural increasing order, if we consider any other increasing function. So what do you mean by increasing function? If you give a set of domain points in an increasing order, the function also gives you the function values in the increasing order. As the domain values increase, the function values also increase. So in place of the natural increasing order, if we consider any other increasing function, so then that will formulate the Riemann-Stieltjes integral. So this is the only difference between the Riemann integral and the Riemann-Stieley integral. So in Riemann-Stieley integral, in place of the natural increasing order of real numbers, we consider some other increasing function. Some other increasing function. That is, in place of delta xi, we consider some other notation with respect to an increasing function. So that we shall see now. So how we will define the Riemann-Stieley integral. So now we come to the Riemann-Stieley's integral. So once again, the procedure is same, everything is same, only the replacement is in place of the natural increasing order of real numbers, consider any other increasing function. So once again, the same initial point. So let f be a bounded real valued function defined on some closed interval a comma b. So now we consider let alpha to be any monotonically increasing function on closed interval a comma b. So alpha is some increasing function, right? Increasing function. So what is alpha is an increasing function means what? If x1 and x2 are any two domain points with x1 is less than or equal to x2 implies alpha x1 is less than or equal to alpha x2. So this is the definition of an increasing function. As the domain points increase, the corresponding function values also increase. For example, you can take alpha of x to be x square, x square. So as the x values increase, x square values also increase. Okay. So now, so let alpha be any monotonically increasing function on the closed interval a comma b. So as it is monotonically increasing, so if we consider any x from a to b, alpha of x is greater than or equal to alpha of a and less than or equal to alpha of b. As it is monotonically increasing, the values of the function should increase from alpha of a till alpha of b, because a is the first point, so alpha of a is the first function value. As it has to increase, so if we consider any other point alpha of x, it will be greater than or equal to alpha of a, because this is the first value, and the function value will gradually increase from alpha of a till alpha of b, alpha of b. So for any intermediate points, alpha of x will be always in between alpha of a and alpha of b. So this is the lower limit or lower value, and this is the upper limit for all alpha x. So that shows that, so set of all images are bounded below by alpha of a and bounded above by alpha of b, which shows that the function alpha is bounded. So the function alpha is bounded, right? So next, consider a partition P equals x0, x1, x2, xn minus 1, xn of closed interval a comma b. So it is a partition means it is a set of finitely many real numbers from a to b taken in the natural increasing order, right? Then this partition P divides the closed interval a comma b into n subintervals, which are the closed interval x0, x1, x1, x2, so on xn minus 1, xn. Now we come to the differentiation point between the Riemann integral and the Riemann-Stieley integral. So in Riemann integral, so using this increasing order of the natural numbers itself, we define the notation delta xi, which is xi minus 1. So now in this place, we use the increasing function alpha. So this is the only difference, right? So we forget this delta xi. Now in that place, we use the notation delta alpha I, where we using the increasing function alpha. So now for each I, we shall define delta alpha I to be alpha xi minus alpha xi minus 1, as xi is greater than or equal to xi minus 1 in the increasing order. So alpha xi will be greater than or equal to alpha xi minus 1. So their difference will be obviously greater than or equal to 0. So in place of delta xi in the Riemann integral, we are taking delta alpha I, where alpha is any monotonically increasing function, right? So now using this delta alpha I, we move further. So if we consider summation delta alpha I, so for each I we have defined delta alpha I. So now sum up all those values. So delta alpha 1 plus delta alpha 2 plus delta alpha n. So use the generalized definition for delta alpha I. So substitute the values. So delta alpha 1 is alpha x1 minus alpha x0 plus delta alpha 2 means alpha x2 minus alpha x1, so on like this. So in every term, the first term gets cancelled with the second term of the second term, next term. So like this, if you cancel the common terms with opposite signs, finally you will obtain alpha xn minus alpha x0, which is nothing but alpha of b minus alpha of a. So now we shall use the boundedness of f, as f is bounded on the closed interval a comma b. So what it means, the set of all images will have lower bound and upper bound. So set of all f of x, as x varies over the closed interval a comma b, they are bounded below by some m and above by some capital M. Now as it is bounded on the whole closed interval a comma b, on any subinterval also we can have the same inequality, right? So now observe that as x varies over this subinterval, the f of x values. So these numbers are bounded below by m and bounded above by m. So now if we consider these numbers, set of all f of x as x varies over the closed interval xi minus 1 xi. So then this forms a non-empty set of real numbers which are bounded below and bounded above. So as this set is bounded below, the infimum of those numbers exist, and also as these numbers are bounded above, their supremum will exist. Call small mi as the infimum of these f of x's and capital Mi as supremum of these f of x's. Now as Mi is a greatest lower bound of these numbers and m is a lower bound, so m will be less than or equal to the greatest lower bound, and capital M is the least upper bound, m is a upper bound. So any upper bound will be greater than or equal to the least upper bound. So we will get this inequality, right? Next, we define two new terms. So one is L of PF alpha to be summation Mi into delta alpha I running from 1 to n, and U of PF alpha to be summation Mi into delta alpha I running from 1 to n. Here L PF alpha, U PF alpha are called the lower Riemann-Stieltjes sum and the upper Riemann-Stieltjes sum of f with respect to the partition P and alpha respectively. That is, LPF alpha is called the lower Riemann-Stieltjes sum, and UPF alpha is called the upper Riemann-Stieltjes sum. So now use this inequality. So call this as some star. So by star, what we have, m is less than or equal to mi, less than or equal to capital Mi, less than or equal to capital M. So now multiply delta alpha I to this inequality, as delta alpha I is greater than or equal to 0. So this inequality remains the same. And we have this for each I. So now sum up all the terms from I running from 1 to n, then summation m delta alpha I will be less than or equal to summation mi delta alpha I will be less than or equal to summation capital Mi delta alpha I will be less than or equal to summation capital M delta alpha I. So the first term here, m is constant, m is a fixed value, so take it outside the summation. So the second term is nothing but the lower Riemann-Stieltjes sum as we have defined, and this third term is the upper Riemann-Stieltjes sum, and the last term, the capital M is constant, take it outside. So we are remained with m into summation delta alpha in the first term and capital M into summation delta alpha in the last term. So as we have calculated earlier, summation delta alpha is what? It is alpha of b minus alpha of a. Substitute that value. Finally, you will get the relation. So this inequality. So call this as some double star, where P is any partition. So the partition which we started with was arbitrary. So this holds for any partition. So here as you vary P, so vary the partition P. So for any partition P, So LPF alpha, that is the lower Riemann-Stieltjes sum, is always less than or equal to capital M into alpha of B minus alpha of A. So what you will do is, so collect all lower Riemann-Stieltjes sums for any partition P of A comma B. So what all the partitions on closed interval A comma B we can consider with respect to each of that partition, calculate the lower Riemann sum and put it in the set. So when you collect all the lower Riemann-Stieltjes sums for all partitions, then every member of this set is always less than or equal to M into capital M into alpha of B minus alpha of A by double star. So what it means, capital M into alpha of B minus alpha of A becomes an upper bound for this set. So it is a set of real numbers which is bounded above. So its supremum obviously exists. So supremum of LPF alpha exists and define it to be the lower Riemann-Stieltjes integral of F. So define it to be integral minus A to B F d alpha. So this integral denotes the lower Riemann integral, lower Riemann-Stieltjes integral of F. And on the other hand, so for varying partition P of closed interval A comma B, you can observe UPF alpha, that is the upper Riemann-Stieltjes sum, is always greater than or equal to small m into alpha of B minus alpha of A. So what that means, if you consider all upper Riemann-Stieltjes sums for varying partition P of closed interval A comma B, then small m into alpha of B minus alpha of A becomes a lower bound for all these members. So what that means, the set of all lower Riemann-Stieltjes sums is a set of real numbers bounded below by small m into alpha of B minus alpha of A. So their infimum obviously exists, and call that infimum as the upper Riemann integral of F with respect to alpha from over the closed interval A comma B. So here this integral is called the lower Riemann-Stieltjes integral, and this is called the upper Riemann-Stieltjes integral. So both are the integrals of F with respect to alpha over the closed interval A comma B. So that means, so using the existence of supremum of all lower Riemann-Stieltjes sums and infimum of all upper Riemann-Stieltjes sums, we define two notions. So one is the lower Riemann integral of F, lower Riemann-Stieltjes integral of F with respect to alpha over the closed interval A comma B, and the other is the upper Riemann-Stieltjes integral of F with respect to alpha over the closed interval A comma B. So it is similar to the Riemann integral. So the only difference is, so we consider an extra monotonically increasing function. Now, if at all the lower Riemann-Stieltjes integral of F with respect to alpha over the closed interval A comma B is equal to the upper Riemann-Stieltjes integral of F with respect to alpha over the closed interval A comma B. So if the lower Riemann-Stieltjes integral is equal to the upper Riemann-Stieltjes integral, then we say that F is Riemann-Stieltjes integrable on the closed interval A comma B. And we write F belongs to R of alpha on the closed interval A comma B, where R of alpha is nothing but the set of all Riemann-Stieltjes integrable functions. So what we have done now, we started with a bounded real valued function and along with a monotonically increasing function. So using the monotonically increasing nature of alpha, we define delta alpha i's for each I using the partition points P. So later we define two sums. One is the lower Riemann-Stieltjes sum, the other is upper Riemann-Stieltjes sum. and these two terms satisfy the inequality, this one, small m into alpha of b minus alpha of a less than or equal to L P F alpha less than or equal to U P F alpha less than or equal to capital M into alpha of b minus alpha of a. So using this inequality, we observe that the supremum of all lower Riemann Steele sums exist, and also the infimum of all upper Riemann Steele sums exist. So we define supremum of all lower Riemann Steele sums as the lower Riemann Steele integral, and we define infimum of all upper Riemann Steele sums as the upper Riemann integral. And if at all they are equal, we say F is Riemann Steele integral, right? And later on, the common value. If the lower Riemann Steele integral is equal to the upper Riemann Steele integral, so the common value is taken as the Riemann Steele integral of F with respect to alpha over the closed interval a comma b. So, and it is denoted by integral f d alpha from alpha to b. So this is called, this value is called the Riemann Steele integral of f with respect to alpha over the closed interval a comma b. So this is the definition of the Riemann Steele integral. Now we shall see a similarity between Riemann Steele integral and Riemann integral. So in the above definition of Riemann Steele integral, in place of the monotonically increasing function alpha, consider the identity function. That is, take alpha of x to be x itself. So which is a particular type of increasing function, which is an example for an increasing function. So put alpha of x is equal to x, then we shall observe delta alpha I. What is it? It is alpha of xi minus alpha of xi minus 1. As alpha is the identity function, it is xi minus 1. But this difference is defined to be delta xi in the Riemann integral. Now delta alpha is nothing but delta xi. Now consider the lower Riemann Steele sum LPF alpha. So what is it? It is summation mi delta alpha I, but delta alpha I is nothing but delta xi, so it will be nothing but summation mi delta xi, but which is nothing but lower Riemann sum, that is LPF. So lower Riemann Steele sum coincides with the lower Riemann sum, and similarly the upper Riemann Steele sum coincides with the upper Riemann sum. So the lower Riemann Steele sums are nothing but lower Riemann sums. Upper Riemann Steele sums are nothing but upper Riemann sums. So now we shall come to the upper Riemann Steele integral. It is defined, sorry, lower Riemann Steele integral. It is defined to be supremum of all lower Riemann Steele sums. But all lower Riemann Steele sums are nothing but lower Riemann sums. So their supremum is taken as the lower Riemann integral, and upper Riemann Steele integral is defined to be infimum of all upper Riemann Steele sums, which is nothing but the infimum of upper Riemann sums, because upper Riemann Steele sums are nothing but upper Riemann sums. So which gives you the upper Riemann integral. So what that means, upper Riemann Steele integral coincides with the upper Riemann integral, and the lower Riemann Steele integral coincides with the lower Riemann integral. So now if I assume that the lower Riemann Steele integral is equal to the upper Riemann Steele integral, then f will be Riemann Steele integrable, and that will imply that the lower Riemann integral will be equal to the upper Riemann integral, and this common value is taken as the Riemann Steele integral value, and that will be equal to the Riemann integral. So if these two values are equal, so as this value coincides with the lower Riemann integral and this value coincides with the upper Riemann integral, if these two are one and the same, then these two will be one and the same, right? So the common value of this will be equal to the common value of this. So the common value of these two will be nothing but the Riemann Steele integral, and the common value of these two will be the Riemann integral. So the Riemann-Stieley integral will be nothing but equal to the Riemann integral. So that shows that by taking the monotonically increasing function alpha as the identity function, that is defining alpha of x is equal to x, the Riemann-Stieley integral coincides with the Riemann integral. So you can observe, so this integral actually indicates the Riemann-Stieley integral of f. Right, this is the value of the Riemann-Stieley integral of f, and which coincides with the Riemann integral of f. And this is because of taking the monotonically increasing function alpha as the identity function. So in other words, I can say every Riemann Riemann-Stieley integrable function is also Riemann integrable function. Integrable function. Because, so we started, I assumed that f is Riemann-Stieley integrable. That is, if the lower Riemann-Stieley integral is equal to the upper Riemann-Stieley integral, if I assume that, then the lower Riemann integral is equal to the upper Riemann integral. So which shows that f will be Riemann integral. So assuming f is Riemann-Stieley integrable, which implies f is Riemann integral. And further, the Riemann-Stieley integral of f coincides with the Riemann integral of f. That is, whenever the monotonically increasing function alpha is the identity function, the Riemann-Stieley integral is nothing but the Riemann integral. So if you take a particular monotonically increasing function alpha, then the Riemann-Stieley integral is nothing but Riemann integral. So that shows that Riemann integral is a special type of Riemann-Stieley integral, because you can obtain Riemann integral from Riemann-Stieley integral by taking the monotonically increasing function alpha as the identity function. So in Riemann-Stieley integral, alpha could be any monotonically increasing function. You can take any monotonically increasing function in place of alpha. In particular, if you take the identity function, then Riemann-Stieley integral is nothing but the Riemann integral. So this shows that Riemann-Stieley integral is a more general type of integral compared to the Riemann integral. Riemann integral is a particular type of integral because it is obtained from Riemann-Stieley integral by taking particular monotonically increasing function. So Riemann integral is a special type. It is a type of Riemann-Stieley integral, and Riemann-Stieley integral is a generalized one. So Riemann-Stieley integral is nothing but generalization of the Riemann integral. You can write like this also. So note that the Riemann-Stieley integral is a generalization of the Riemann integral. Right? So this is the relation between the Riemann-Stieley integral and Riemann integral. So Riemann-Stieley integral is a generalized one, as it involves arbitrary monotonically increasing function alpha. And in place of that monotonically increasing function alpha, if you take a particular one, which is the identity function, you will get the Riemann integral. That means Riemann integral is a particular case of the Riemann-Stieley integral, or you can say the Riemann integral is a special type of Riemann-Stieley integral. So you have to remember this, you have to note this. What is the relation between Riemann-Stieley integral and Riemann integral? Riemann-Stieley integral is a generalized one. Riemann integral is a particular one, which is a particular case of the Riemann-Stieley integral. And in this video, we discussed about Riemann integral, Riemann-Stieley integral, and the relation between Riemann-Stieley integral and Riemann integral.